Back on Adapt and Respond with me, RJ Young. If you're new to the show, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If you're into that, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Which team do you expect to bounce back from what was a substandard year by their measure? And I think there are a handful of programs that fit for this. Some of them because they can't get any worse, and some of them because it was just really odd to see them have a down year. I think at the top of the list, you can go Florida State, right? 2-10. That ain't going to cut it. But also, we don't expect Florida State to be that bad this year. We expect them to flip it around in a quick, fast, in a hurry. They're embarrassed. And because they're embarrassed, they're mad. And they're mad, they want to take it out on somebody. They get to play one of these teams that I'm going to talk about a little bit later that I think has got a little bit more to worry about than Florida State. Mike Norvell turns over the staff, right? New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, tagged his mentor, Gus Malzahn, to run the offense, brought in a guy in Tommy Castellanos who's going to talk his noise. I don't know that Florida State is going to compete for the ACC championship because at the top, it feels like it's Clemson. SMU is going to show me that they're good or bad, right? North Carolina will find out real quick. But through the middle, Syracuse is good, right? Miami is good. Boston College is going to be tough. Georgia Tech is going to be tough. It's not going to be as easy as it might have been for Florida State in years past to move up to the top. But I do expect them to flip this thing around from 2-10 to bowling, right? And I think bowling is the bare minimum that you would expect from Florida State. Is that enough to keep Mike Norvell in his seat? We'll see, right? Because it's getting kind of hot there. I would also add Kansas. They had an abysmal first half of the season last year, but that was very Lance Leipold-like. You had a Jalen Daniels that wasn't himself until the second half. And when they got to the second half, Devin Neal's running over people. I think you can expect them to flip it around. I think really the teams that fit this are ones for which we're like, you are perennially really great. What happened last year? Why this odd year? Wisconsin fits the bill for me, right? Wisconsin is better when they run the football. Surprise, surprise. When they got away from running the football, they lost football games. When they ran the football, they were really good and had Oregon on the ropes. Again, they're also dealing with, backup quarterback, which I think had a lot to do with it. They lose Tyler Van Dyke very early in the season. But Phil Longo's offense never felt like the kind that fit Wisconsin's identity. And sometimes that's what it's about. Are you playing to the program's identity? Georgia runs the ball and plays defense. Wisconsin runs the ball and plays defense. When you try to be somebody you haven't been, it's affecting, right? And I think that's affecting at all levels. It's not just the players on the field, the playbook, coordinators. It's secretary, it's the janitor, it's the students who have this idea in their head. And they're also doing their jobs a little bit differently because they got this idea in their head. I think it's emotional intelligence is what we're feeling when we watch Wisconsin play, when they watch Wisconsin play, right down to jump around, right? How's Payne? Y'all should have let that happen, dog. Like that, I hate that too. But since 2022, basically since the Oklahoma State game, Wisconsin's 12-0 when they run the ball for 150 yards or more. They are 13-1 when they just hand the ball off 35 times more or a game. Feels very cut and dry. It's because it is. So when the offense last year rushed for its fewest yards in the 20th century, 1,844, that's a sign of why you're bad. Like that's the fewest yards that Wisconsin had rushed for in a single season since 1995. And every year that they got a tailback, they got a guy from Melvin Gordon all the way back to Ron Dane, Monty Ball. They've been James White. They've been really, really difficult to beat. And I think in his heart, that's who Luke Fickell wants to be. Having played the nose at Ohio State, having been defense coordinator at Ohio State, having seen what it's like for an Ohio State team to run the ball down people's throats and play defense, I think he's going to try to get back to that. And that's why he brings in Jeff Grimes, who had the offense at Kansas last year. Devin Neal had 1,000-yard rushing season. You're going to identify your tailback. You're going to feed him the rock. You're going to make it happen. I think making it worse is, you're averaging just 20.8 points per game in 2024. And we're talking about the fewest points that a Wisconsin team has scored since 2004. But that year was also a magical year for them. They won at Ohio State, a ranked Ohio State, and a number 5 Purdue. That's how long ago that was. But that was that. I mean, had this been 2024, they'd be 9-0, right? But that's not just 2004, it'd be 9-0. But that's not what it is, right? We're expecting them to get back to being who they are. The team that I think we should be talking more about in this instance is actually Utah, because Kyle Whittingham suffered his first losing season since 2013 at a program that has been a perennial winner. Now, going 5-7 is one thing, but they also had quarterback problems. Cam Rising was never healthy, and Isaac Wilson never really figured it out. So what do? You watch your offensive coordinator go away, and you go recruit an offensive coordinator and a quarterback, not unlike what has become in vogue. You go get the pair. And what he got was Jason Beck and Devin Dampier. A bad Lobos team, but a prolific Lobos offense. They put up 33.5 points per game last year, which ranked 24th in the country. And they put up 484 yards per game. Wild. Dampier himself averaged 7.5 yards per carry, rushed for 1,166 yards, threw for 2,768 yards, 27 total TDs to just 12 picks. Those numbers are Heisman level in the SEC, right? In the Big 12, you're looking at a guy that could be your offensive player of the year. It's also getting away from the kind of offense that has become synonymous with Kyle Whittingham. We want to own the line of scrimmage. We want to run the ball. We want to play defense. With Dampier and Rayshawn Parker, a really great tailback transferring in from Washington State, you're going to have opportunities to run the ball, but is it going to be the kind of forceful, beat them up, beat them down, run the football that, again, we think comes from Kyle Whittingham? I think it is, but I think you're also going to see guys that are taking deeper shots. Now, this might be a case of just what I talked about with Wisconsin. You get too far away from your identity, it can come to bite you and hurt you. But 5-7 is just not who we've expected Utah to be. As a matter of fact, I think Dampier might be the most talented athlete at quarterback that Utah has had since Alex Smith. And that, it's a long time ago. But Urban Meyer's coaching at Utah. But you understand what I mean here. Let's see just what Utah is capable of with that guy at quarterback and with that offensive coordinator and Jason Beck calling plays. Last team I think we need to talk about in this instance is Alabama. They got to bounce back from last year. I think there's more pressure on them than any other team because they missed the college football playoff when it expanded to 12 teams. That used to be, you pencil them in. Matter of fact, going into the season, we would have penciled them in. And after the first 4 games, that's what it should have been. They beat up on Wisconsin, a team they got to play. They're going to get an opportunity to beat up on Florida State this year, a team they got to play. But they are able to beat a number 2 Georgia and then lose to Vanderbilt, lose to Tennessee, lose to a bad Oklahoma, and lose to a middling Michigan. If you win 2 of the 3 games you lost, you're playing in the playoff with 10 wins. People are going to put that team in. And I think the Nick Saban tax is being applied to Alabama. That is to say, he ain't coaching there. So you don't get the benefit of the doubt in the way that you might otherwise. I think if Kalen DeBoer was head coach at Alabama in 2023, you would have put Florida State in that spot and not Alabama. Because it's Nick Saban, you know what you're going to get on the football field, and that matters. It does. It's unfair, but that's why you want a Nick Saban. So you get that unfair advantage, and that's what they thought they were getting in Caleb DeBoer, a guy who had lost all of 12 games and won over 100 as a head coach. Really need to get that figured out quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I hope they do because sport's pretty cool when Alabama's pretty good. We come back, I want to talk about the program that is most likely to build on its success from last year and why I think it's an SEC team that not enough people are talking about for reasons that got everything to do with potential.